serious?
What is up, YouTubers? Dutch in the house. Thank you very much for tuning in for an update on this here build project of mine. This is the Rotorama body 7-inch frame, and I've done a review of this 7-inch frame and its 5-inch brother, if you will, and an update on this build. Yeah, the weather in the Netherlands, it's winter. The weather has been abysmal over here, so this project has been on the back burner for a little while, but the weather is improving, so I'm gonna be building this thing this week. The frame, again, I've done a review of it and I've got me some motors on the frame already. These are RCinpower's motors. And I've had good luck with RCinpower's motors. If you've used their motors, I think you will agree that they make nice motors. I am not sponsored by them. I don't endorse them in any way. I'm not. I don't get a price cut even. So, but well, I like their motors so far. I've used them on 3 5-inch builds so far. This is obviously my first 7-inch build with RCinpower motors. So let me see. What am I going to tell you in this video? Yeah, I'm gonna give you an overview of the parts I'll use. But I think that this here, this contains the stack from Mamba Diatone. I think this is the most interesting part of the parts. No pun intended. Yeah, so even though the box says basic, this is no basic stack at all. So we'll first have a look at this stack. And after that, if you're interested, I'll take you through on a tour around the rest of this build, the rest of the components. So let's have a look at this Diatone Mamba stack. Let's actually have a good look at the box itself, or the specs that is. So again, Mamba, that's from Diatone, right? If you are new to this, then you might not have heard of their stacks. I used their stacks in a lot of builds and worked out for me. Again, I'm not sponsored by them. I bought all components of this build with my own money. But yeah, I've used a lot of Mamba stacks. And so yeah, a basic F722, that's a bit weird. An F722 isn't really basic, right? So what is basic about this flight controller? It even has flash memory built in. It's a full-size flight controller. Maybe that's a little bit basic these days. And Diatone now has H7 flight controllers as well, which is a newer generation, right? So maybe in that sense, in their lineup, it's a basic flight controller by now. Even though it's the latest version of the F722, it's the mk3 of their full-size F7 flight controller. And obviously we'll have a look at what that means in a second. Then we've got a 4-in-1 ESC, which is not basic at all. And okay, its name doesn't contain basic, right? It is an F65, which means it's a 65 amp per channel or per motor ESC. Also 180K. So that is a modern 4-in-1 ESC. Right, and obviously a BL-Heli 32, so not BL-Heli S. Yeah, it's a proper powerful 4-in-1 ESC. I think it's overkill actually, but for a 7-inch, which will probably carry 1 or 2 GoPros, a little bit of overkill doesn't really matter. It'll definitely be able to carry the extra weight of a slightly heavier 4-in-1 ESC, right? This won't be an inexpensive build to me, so again, a little bit of overkill will make me feel securer, is that a word? More secure in flying this quadcopter. Okay, let's see what's in this box. Okay, if you have used their stacks before, Diatone Mamba stacks, most of the content will probably look very familiar. It will definitely look very familiar to me if I can actually open the box. That is, yeah, there we go. All right, but oh, okay. And we've got what is this? Mamba hologram thing. Okay, links to their websites, social media and such. We've got, okay, let's actually have a look what this contains. I see some mounting hardware. Yeah, okay, we've got stack screws, a ribbon cable from the 4-in-1 ESC to your flight controller, which is probably a spare, I'm not sure, and some plastic screws for the stack. We've got an XC60 and a capacitor. What kind of capacitor is that? That's a really small capacitor. This is a 35 volts, 470 microfarads. And okay, so its size is small, but its capacity should be more than enough for this build actually. So that's nice, a luxurious capacitor, and again an XC60. And we got more, we've got, okay, anti-vibration grommets for your stack as well. Okie dokie, then we have the stack itself, one 4-in-1 ESC. So there it is. There is our luxurious overkill 4-in-1 ESC. 65 amp with a massive heat. Okay, so I thought this metal shield here would be a heat sink, and it is connected to some of the FETs, but only to 4. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see that, but I can see straight underneath that shield. Again, it is connected physically to 4 of the FETs at the corners. So heat spreader maybe, but it looks more like an interference, anti-magnetic interference radiation. Yeah, I am no electronics expert, but again, it looks more like an interference shield than a heat spreader to me. Or maybe to physically protect the FET against, well, debris, right? Maybe debris that's swung into your stack by the propellers. So, okay, interesting. Again, I had expected this to be a heat sink, a heat spreader, but it doesn't seem like it is. Okay, then we've got our flight controller, again basic, and it still looks strange to me, F722 and then basic on the same flight controller. So it also doesn't have a DJI plug, so, and only one accelerometer, so maybe that makes it basic. Diatone does offer flight controllers with dual gyros, so again, maybe it's not weird to call this a basic flight controller in their lineup, but it's a full size. And yeah, so a lot of companies now sell smaller flight controllers, like for instance the Foxeer flight controllers I've used in previous builds, and that definitely has benefits, especially on smaller builds or builds in which you don't want the build to be heavy. In this case, 7-inch builds, a few grams here and there won't matter at all. And this full-size flight controller has bigger solder pads which are easy to reach. So this is definitely nice to work with. And it also has a USB-C connector. Nice, thank you very much. Okay, what else do we have? We've got power cables, we've got decals, Mamba decals, thank you very much. Oh, we've got a lot more. Service support card, documentation. The documentation of both the flight controller and the 4-in-1 EC can be found on the Diatone website as well, but it's nice to have that on paper too. And obviously one for the flight controller as well, or well, obviously, I assume there's one for the flight controller as well. There you go. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, always nice to see, but again, you can find that on the website as well. And this is interesting, a soldering practice board. If you are new to that, you can practice soldering, your soldering skills in all kinds of sizes on this board. And it's definitely nice to see that included with the stick. I've done a lot of builds by now. I'm no soldering wizard, but I can definitely solder up a quadcopter and make it be reliable. But I also see a lot of solder jobs on the interwebs that leave to be desired. So this is definitely a good thing for Diatone to include. Alrighty, a bit of a close-up look at both the components here then, and here you can actually see EMI firewall. So is that the correct wording? But anyway, this shield you see here is an EMI or electrical interference shield. Again, not a heat spreader or a cooling, whatever. It is, well, an electrical magnetical interference shield, and it'll also physically prevent damage to the components on this board, of course. Then, okay, so both of these, the flight controller and the foreign body you see are full size, 30.5 by 30.5 millimeters. And with that you have nice big solder pads, right? Luxurious, easy to solder. And also you see a little hole over here and over here. You can use those to mount your capacitor, right, to keep it in place while soldering, or you could use these holes. Yeah, probably not a capacitor like this, but a bigger one. Or, and I will probably do that, use these solder pads for your DJI setup, or to power a different kind of VTX, an analog VTX. Yeah, so in a minute I'll show you what other components I'll use, and you'll see that I can in fact use that Vista set, power that Vista set rather, from the direct battery. Okay, so yeah, full-size flight controller, an F7, and that means that we've got nice big solder pads. Over here we've got an array of solder pads for your VTX, an analog VTX, and that means that you've got a 9-volt out and a ground and a TX and an RX3 I think, and I'm not completely sure, but I've at least one UART over here. Over here you've got solder pads for an analog camera. Over here you've got solder pads for receivers, all kinds of receivers. And over here part of a UART I think, I'm not completely sure. And over here general purpose UARTs, right, for GPS and such, whatever you want. Yeah, on the other side of the board, okay, yeah, we got a chip for our OSD over here, and we've got three coils. So one is for a 9-volt sub-circuit, your VTX for instance, and one is for 5 volts receivers, and one 3.3 volts, if I'm not mistaken. I think the 3.3 volts? Yeah, we got a 3.3 volts for Spectrum receivers as well. And this board has two... Oh, this is probably a connector for a LED board. This one over here as well. Yeah, the board actually has an LED controller in it, so hopefully you can see that. You've got two buttons over here. One is a bootloader button, of course, to flash firmware onto the flight controller. The other one is to cycle through LED modes. Yeah, so that means that that way you can change the behavior of your LEDs with a button, not through Betaflight. There's probably also somewhere a connector pair or a solder pad pair for a normal LED configuration, which can then be configured via Betaflight. Okay, so yeah, maybe that's handy for you. For instance, airplanes, that might be handy. Oh well. Okay, so, and rather than me blabbing on about how big the solder pads are, furthermore, I will do a separate video in which I will actually install the stack into my quadcopter. So do the actual soldering and stuff, and maybe that'll be informative to you. Also, if you are left with questions about this stack, leave them in the comment section below. Maybe I can address those in the video about the setup of the stack rather. Alrighty, let's see what other components I'll be using for this 7-inch body, Rotorama body build. Okay, so the parts for this body 7-inch build. Obviously the Rotorama body frame. Again, I've done a review of these frames. And also I'll have links to all components for this build in the description of this video. I don't think any of those will be affiliate links. I'm not completely sure. Most of them will. I'm not making money here. let's call it that. Yeah. So okay, we've got a digital setup. So this is going to be a digital quadcopter. This is a normal Vista set, which I used in a previous quadcopter. So I know it works. That's a bonus. However, there are two things I will be changing. This is the antenna that came with the Vista set. However, I'll be using a slightly longer, hopefully that'll be visible. This will be a 15 centimeter Vista antenna. So yeah, 7-inch quadcopter. The battery will be a little bit bigger than on your typical quadcopter. So I wanted an antenna that would reach further out. 15 centimeters. Also, this body frame is very spacious, very big, but also the fuselage, the middle section is pretty long, and with that, this with the camera at the front over here, this cable, the cable between the Vista set and the camera, wouldn't be long enough, right? I want to have that Vista unit at the back of my quadcopter. So I've also ordered me a bigger or a longer cable. Yeah, 14 centimeters. That should do. I'm not sure how long the standard cable is. 8 centimeters? I'm really not sure. But again, this 14 centimeter cable should work. Then we've got the propulsion set for our quadcopter. The motors, I've mentioned them already. These are RCinpower Smoox. Yeah, okay, 2806.5. So that's is it a typical size for a 7-inch build? It's pretty similar to previous 7-inch quadcopters I have built, so this should work out. This will make it not a light quadcopter, which is not what I want. This will make it more or less a freestylable 7-inch quadcopter, capable of easily carrying a GoPro, for instance. Maybe even 2 GoPros. Yeah, but well, the proof is in the pudding, right? We'll see how well this quadcopter performs. At least the frame is built sturdily. And these motors, I'm pretty sure will do the job. Again, we'll see in hopefully in less than a week. Yeah, okay, so those are the motors I'll be using. Again, links to all components in the description of this video. Alright, and a couple of propellers won't hurt either. These are HQprops and these are obviously 7-inch. 7 times 4, so a pitch of 4. And they do have 7-inch propellers with a lighter pitch. Again, this is not a long-range build, this is a power build. So with that 4-inch of pitch and obviously 3-blade, as you can tell. And the last 2 components for this build, a Crossfire receiver. You know Crossfire receivers, that'll work. And okay, so this is actually not the Lipo I will be using on this build. This is a 1100 mAh 6S, which is obviously too small. I've asked CNHL to brew me up Lipos. Yeah, they, at least in the European warehouse, didn't have Lipos that I wanted to use for this build. I'm thinking around 22 to 2600 mAh. So actually, I could simply use 2 of these, but you'd have the added weight and cumbersomeness of extra wires. So basically twice this Lipo. I've used these Lipos for a couple of years now. A couple of years? Yeah, 1.5, 2 years, and these work. So yeah, I will probably be using CNHL Black Series Lipos, but then bigger than this one. You tell me in the comment section below actually what you think would be an appropriate size for a 7-inch freestylable quadcopter in the 6S range. I'd be interested to know. Also, if you've seen components pass by in this video that you thought, well, that won't work, Dutch RC. Yeah, please tell me in the comment section below. I'd be very interested, obviously. So, with that said, that's it for this video. I will be doing a build a live, well, probably not live, but an installation of the stack, if you will, a video, and that'll be my next video. Again, if you have questions or suggestions, hit me up a comment down below. Catch you on the next video. Bye bye.